Hello, Daniel from Mirra BMX Builds. We got some new gadgets, so now I can sit in front of the camera and push a button instead of go push a button and twinkle toe around and hey, how you doing? Moving up in the world, so I can put it up here. Yeah. Anyways, that's kind of neat. Going to kind of get into what I've been doing this whole time and kind of my plan. And it all started with this frame and this build really, but technically I take that back. It all started way back when I was about 12 years old, and like I said, I built this bike to be like the Road Champs little finger bikes, and I got one for Christmas and instead of this, and just daydreamed about this bike. Daydream. I lost a lot of sleep. I just all I could think about was this bike. And so I built one. And in order to build this one, which I've gone over in a few other videos, and I know that some of it seems a little bit repetitive, but I want to kind of like have everything kind of in the gist of it in one video. And so getting to my point, everything's tied together. You don't have to go search around and things like that. Um, this bike was quite the journey. I got a lot of hate over this bike at first, and then people started realizing that, man, this guy's got some a little bit of abilities that aren't necessarily bike related, but they do cross over. And I started getting some good compliments and people come around and open it up and talking a little bit. But I just, you can Google anything else in the world, and it'll tell you just about everything there is to know inside and out to it. And there's hundreds of YouTube videos about things, and um, there just wasn't much on these bikes per se, like the Mirra Golden Era. Some people say it goes to up till Miraco and things like that. For me personally, and a lot of people, I'm 37, a lot of people my age, are going to be around the 98, 99 to 2002. I think what I probably quit riding in 2005. I think I figured out for sure, and I just never could afford one of these, and I can't find any information on them really. I mean, yes, there is some, and I'm not knocking the BMX museum, so I'm hoping that anybody in my videos watching this isn't like taking this as I'm knocking on who's got stuff in there. I'm not discrediting anything from there. It's not like I'm saying it's not a good site. It's a fantastic site. Especially if you pay the $25. I had a really hard time navigating that site till I realized that you had to pay the $25, and then it is a lot easier to navigate and understand. Like paint code. My very first thing that I wanted to find was more up close pictures of this frame. I obviously know the general shape of it, and you know, general color ish of what things should be and things like that. And um, I couldn't find an exact paint code. And to be honest with you, I still don't think anybody's correct on the factory paint code. And also, we're going to cover a lot of things here. That's what kind of made me get first kind of started on this, and then noticing that like the 540 frame appeared to be um, not much different than a pro frame, and I was trying to figure out why that is and what the geometry is exactly, like the degree of the head tube, the seat tube, the length of the top tube, the length of the chainstay, the bottom bracket height. And you can go look up any other bike in the world and it tells you all those things, and I just wasn't really finding it. And I was like, well, you just didn't look harder. I don't think any of you guys, um, including myself, because I'm pretty sure I sleepwalking doing this stuff, but how much I've read and how much I've crammed in the last 4 or 5 months. I technically started a year ago, but I just kind of watched the groups and just kind of like dabbled in it a little bit here and there, and watched kind of the prices of things, and kind of got an idea of like how high people are on Facebook, or not Facebook, but eBay. I mean, I'm sure there's people high on Facebook too, but and just getting a grasp and tickling in on like, okay, I'm gonna start riding again, and then I just one of these days I'll build one, and then I found a 540 frame. It was the green olive, chrome olive, or whatever they call that. And anyhow, I wanted to know what exactly made it any different. I got the frame for $20. And so a lot of you guys on there seeing the pictures of the progress of this, where this is all manufactured to look like a pro frame. But like I said, I didn't care, because I'm just building a life-size replica that I'm never going to ride of my finger bike. And on that journey of buying parts, I ended up with another bike. It was a Nyquist bike. I ended up trading that frame off for these cranks, actually. And I learned a valuable lesson there too. So I ended up with the crank arms were fine, but the bottom bracket and things like that, I just wasn't 100% sure on, like, I didn't know they were 20 millimeter. I mean, these are all just so many things. So many things. There's different seat post clamps. The USA stem, most people think that they came stock on it would be your Taiwan Pro, and then the USA Pro came frame only. And so that's why I'm going to touch into a lot of these different things along this. This big block stem is actually what came stock on it. If you walked in the bike shop and you picked out a Dave Mirra Pro bike, it was a Taiwan frame with USA parts for the most part. This stem was not the integrated gyro upper tab, USA big block style. And then like 2002, it still has that integrated upper gyro plate, but that is actually a Taiwan stem. So this is the correct stem that would have came on this bike. And I thought so from pictures and things. And then that's okay. I'm gonna try not to go down rabbit holes. I'm gonna try to stay on topic here. There's so many things. Back to the museum thing. So this is a case in point. I found lots of pictures of like Dave Mirra spec builds and things like that, and there's like a list. There's the most popular one's like a list of his bikes from like, I think it's like 98, 99 to 2006, and there's just pictures, and they're so granulated. I mean, it's not anybody's fault. There just wasn't any good, cameras like there are nowadays, and a lot of digital things and such like that. But you zoom in, so I have to screenshot it because the page is kind of weird how you zoom in and things, and I'm not on a computer, I'm on a phone, and to figure out things like that. And then to search Dave Mirra images, which there's quite a few, but there's not a pile like you would think, There's like, to me, there has to be more footage, and there has to be more pictures out there, and I'm hoping this new documentary that's going to come out reveals a lot more of that stuff. And there's on the museum with that list of bikes, there's not like, okay, well, these are 175 millimeter. Yes, you could, if you wanted to. The Masters, the Flatland were like 160. They came stock. These are 175, and like 180s, like the race bike stuff, like the TR1. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the race bike stuff, TR1 or something like that. Anyways, not gonna go down that. Not knocking them, nothing like that. I'm just not very knowledgeable in those, and I'm just gonna try to stick to things that I, for the most part, know. I don't know at all. Anyways, so there's a couple different variations of the seat, in fact, and some people might think just because it says Tribute Series or Pro Series, but not. It's not. There's a little different, subtle differences. There's a sparkle seat, kind of this general shape of it, the way that's stitched. This logo, I think they have one that has the Pro Series in big letters underneath there. You'd see on like your 540s and stuff like that. Anyways, another rabbit hole. So not against anybody or the site or anything. There's a plethora of decent, okay-ish knowledge. I gotta really watch how I word things. I'm not very good at this because I just end up, I pray against the spirit of offense on people. I'm not meaning to offend. I don't mean that. Somebody took some serious time and did that and cataloged what they could and the things they could find. It's not their fault. But there are things that aren't in the articles that I found. And there's stuff that I found in each article that aren't necessarily correct. And there's things in each article that even if you put everything together, it doesn't fit like this. It fits like this. And stuff missing. Lots of stuff missing. So along the journey of building this, I started gathering knowledge, the different handlebars. I just kind of thought this general shape was like the second they went to this style of the Dave Mirra handlebar. I mean, we could sit here for days and do this, but there's the 98, 99 style knee saver, and then they went to the actual like Mirra Y2K knee saver, and they're a little bit shorter, they're a little bit more upsweep, and they're flatter than like the 99. But there's some stuff out there about that and things of that nature. Like there's just kind of the more well-known things like the count of the teeth and stuff, obviously on like the nuke sprocket, but there's not a lot like of what to look for on the Taiwan versus USA. Obviously this one says USA, but I don't know if you guys didn't know this or not, and I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere, but I should have brought all my sprockets with me. Let's see here. So there's the Haro engraved emblem. Then there's the Haro screen printed, slightly engraved version that says USA here instead of here. And then there's also, these are indexed in different places so that if you flop the sprocket onto the left side of the bike, the logos are actually opposite. So if you can tell, this one is upside down. Now, if you were Dave and your right foot forward, it's the right side up, and so is everything else. Now, on my other sprockets, if I did that, they would be opposite. And so, to me, is there left and right hand sprockets? And I have enough of these nuke sprockets to know that that probably more than likely is the case. This is the very heavily engraved one. This is being an earlier one. And then the ones with the logos flopped around would be the ones that came on this side, is what I'm gathering. Not 100% factual, but that's what I'm getting out with this video. I'm going to start flying around, and I've talked to lots of people with lots of collections and lots of stuff more than I could even afford, but I would like to someday. I've gathered a lot of things, I've gathered a lot of knowledge, but there is a big world out there with collectors and people who have kind of gathered onto Dave's stuff a little bit and kind of built some things up. And there's some guys that like overseas and even on the East Coast and stuff. I'm in Washington State, I'm on the West Coast. There's not a lot of Mirra stuff on this side that have figured a lot of this stuff out. In fact, a great deal of it. And they've built some very, very beautiful, very, very basically correct bike to the point of like, other than maybe having Dave's bike itself, like a one that he actually rode, which is another rabbit trail I'm gonna go down for just a split second. Like, where's Dave's stuff at? Where's all of his old frames? Where's his wheels? Somebody has to have all these things. I know that of a few people who have like some of his personal bikes and some of his personal wheels and a couple pairs of personal bars, but like he's had to have tons, and he changed the variation of his bikes like he changed his underwear each year. And hopefully that was 365. Anyhow, so I had discovered along building this, going back again to where I'm back on point. I'm trying to get better at getting right back to my points and try not to get away from points much, like I am doing right at this very second. Whoops. Commercial. Get your nitric oxide. Sponsor me. Okay, so along figuring out dimensions and things like that, I discovered that Dave had USA bikes, frames, and you could buy the USA frame, and I don't know if I remember that there was a difference back then. I remember seeing pictures in the catalogs of just the frame, and like, I don't know if it was like nowadays where you could buy the complete bike, but you could also buy the frame, or if it's like nowadays where there's some bikes that just came frame only. and then you had to put whatever you wanted on there. And as I'm starting to figure that out, I realized I had come across a bike that had a different serial number style back here on the back. And so I'm going to lay out there my first initial thought of this. So it was H00, and then whatever the rest of the serial number is, it's 3 digits. So it's H00, let's just say 1, 2, 3. So 6 digits, 1 letter, 5 digits. And I was like, that's kind of strange. And then I've come to find out that that's what the difference between a Taiwan frame and the USA frame was. And so then I got curious, and I'm like, okay, well, does that mean that like they only had a certain amount of those USA frames and only like the pro riders got them? Or is that the ones that they sold to the public and they were numbered that way, and then the pro riders got one that didn't have a serial number or whatever? Or did they get one of the serial numbers out of that? And so just that's how my brain works. So I instantly started just soaking in and seeing who had USA stuff and kind of paying attention to their serial number and kind of the parts they had on it. And then I've noticed anybody who usually finds like a Survivor USA frame, that's a complete bike, it's about 80% a different part than a Haro part. And then so things started kind of coming together that way, right? So it's like, okay, well, that does prove, which it's common knowledge. Yes, I know. Like, we already knew that, dude. I know. I'm just gathering information and putting it out there from what I first started getting into this. And I started realizing instantly, okay, this is a frame only thing. Now let's figure out if Dave had different frames than the serial numbers, and he had obviously prototypes and such like that. And that's probably why he changed his bike so many times. Could you imagine changing your bike 365 times in a year and riding on the level that he rode? I know my personal bike, well, let's not even talk about my bike. Any pro rider in the world is going to ride, let's say they're riding this bike and they're used to it, and they're not going to change a thing until they discontinue a part and they are forced to get used to something else. They might change the color, but it'd be just as awkward as moving your handlebar forward 1/4 of an inch. You know, you can, if you ride a lot, you just know something don't feel right. And that guy would ride on he had a different part on his bike on every video, every picture. Like every time he went somewhere, he had a basically different setup. It's crazy. And a lot of it was prototype parts that weren't even Haro parts. Back down rabbit trail. See what you did? See what you did? I need some more of this, and maybe that's what it is. Anyhow, along this journey, I had a little hiccup. By the way, this video is getting at USA specific frames eventually. So if anybody's like bored and yawning and like, dude, we're tired of looking at your crappy bike and things like that, just bear with me. I'm getting to it. So the point of this video is getting to my point about USA frames and what I need from everybody and help like that. So just bear with me. We're almost there. So along this journey, I ended up, how did I come across this guy? He made a message. Oh, I told somebody was selling a bike and I needed the handlebars off it. And I was like, dude, I'll just buy the handlebars for the price you want for the bike. You can keep the bike, you know, because you needed some money. And a guy messaged me, he's like, you need more of those bikes. Like, I figured he must have knew me. He must have been tracking, like, you know, the things I've been buying and kind of what I'm doing. And I messaged him and I was like, what did I say to him? Oh, I said nice fake account, and I just thought it was a guy I was talking to on Messenger, and he just had a different account for some reason. And turns out I didn't know him at all. So I was like, nice fake account to some random guy. And anyhow, I got to talking to him quite a bit, and he's like best buddies with all the FBM guys. And he claimed, I don't know for sure yet, I'm going to fly out and find if there's any fixtures of like what, you know, either they've ordered this pre-bend or whatever, let's say chainstay, but the mandrel bend, there's going to be a jig for it. There's going to be a jig for this. There's going to be a jig for your handlebars. What I'm getting at is there's going to be some proof. And I want to know the guy that welded these things up. Obviously this is not from the USA, but I want to know whose hand welded and who bent, and I want to see the fixtures, and I want to know where the metal came from, where they ordered, you know, a truck full of steel to build these things. Like, I'm getting down to the nitty gritty things. So I'm digging deep, and I find this guy by accident, and he claims that Dave didn't even write a Haro. He wrote an FBM frame, which looked basically identical. The dropout was a little earlier, had less of the freewheel guard down here. It was more straight. And I started referencing that with some pictures that I had screenshotted of all these museum bikes and things, and the stats and the parts that Dave listed in a couple of the things, and the guy reposted, and several people have reposted actually, are parts that weren't even out yet for the frame. And I know Dave was on the next year's prototype frame all the time, but like some of the parts, so like the articles that people screenshotted from and wrote that Dave didn't write himself, are a little off. And so I was keeping track of all these things through this whole time. And then I started going through and rereading and thinking about when this guy had a general idea of when these supposed to be on FBM frames instead of a Haro frame. And I started looking at, like, if anybody knows anything about metal, the way that this is going to crease or not crease, or on the inside crease or not crease on certain frames compared to FBM frames, and the design of their rear dropouts. And then I started kind of paying attention to the angle of the bikes and things, and then how it was welded from the best of my knowledge of the pictures that I could see and zoom in on. And so my journey of going around the country and seeing this stuff in person, to see people's collections in person, what I've gathered, regardless of what this guy says, if he was on FBM frame, I don't know, but he might still. USA frames were built by different people. I've heard Gary Turner, this FBM guy was one of them. I heard there was, what I've gathered, there's 3 different places that these frames were made. And if you do look really closely to the frames, and I in fact tonight had gotten to see a few more basically NOS frames. One of them was an NOS frame, and the creases in the metal are different and the welds are different on some of the different frames and some of the different years, which I kind of gathered and I kind of know. So I'm gathering all these things together, and I'm realizing, and I'll just help you guys out here, this paint code from the Taiwan and the USA is not the same. I don't know if you know that or not. In fact, a lot of the ones that they painted in USA aren't even the same from each other. Where they got painted was different, powder coated was different on some days. Temperature can affect that. The way the metal's prep can affect that. And so there's not a perfect way. Besides, we have a scanner, and I scanned a Taiwan Pro, and that's, I added just a drop more of yellow to it because it was a little too bright. The scan came out a little too bright. It's never 100% perfect, so you got to like do it a little bit. But that's one of the differences too, is you can notice that the USA frames are brighter white if they're factory, and normally you'd have to have your decal off to get the true color that wasn't sun faded and dirty and scratched and things like that. So anyways, going back to it, that's just one of the things I'm kind of getting at with all this. The other thing I was kind of getting at was serial numbers, and I had made a deal with a guy on a USA frame, and I was going back through what I knew about USA stuff and who I've talked to, and I kind of screenshot and going through my screenshots and seeing the different creases from my bike compared to theirs, and there's some differences and there's some similarities, and but anyways, I thought the H00 was Haro, or however you want to do it, if they just want to just put the H so they had a letter, and 00 was 2000. This whole time I'm thinking this, and I went back on the registry just to kind of see where my number was, because there is a guy who did try to register as many of these as they possibly can, the USA frames. And so he can figure out how early of USA frame to how late of a USA frame. And I have, from what people have documented, by far the highest number USA frame known at this moment in red. So that kind of threw out an idea of like, okay, so if it's 800, which I was assuming was 2000, and then the 3 digits was the number of the frame. So does that mean that they made this X amount of numbers in red and this X amount of numbers in white? Is that a possibility of 999 for the year of 2000? Um, I don't know. And so what I was starting to think was maybe they did 500 and 500, or it'd be, obviously 499 and 500, whichever color you picked. And so it was kind of leaning towards that. And I think that was what this guy was trying to get at with his article. And it was kind of looking that way for me until a guy sent me a picture of a raw. I was bringing up the rear dropouts of when they switched the rear dropouts, if it was 2001 or 2002. Turns out, if anybody knows, the more FBM style rear dropout for Dave Mirra's USA frame was 2001. And I was automatically assuming if I could, I was like, why can't I find a 2001? Like, I'm not finding 2000. There's 2000s everywhere. They all say 800. Little did I know, the way later on, after all these headaches and all these things and stuff, that like I'm gonna find an 801 or an 802 plus the 3 digits for however many, and that was gonna decipher how many bikes per year. And what I'm finding out is with this raw frame, that's a 2002 USA Pro, it is 800 900 something, and I was like, wait, what? Oh, shouldn't it be 02? Shouldn't it be another digit? So then where I'm sitting right now at this moment, so I can get with you guys, is I know there's 3 different styles of USA frames. And I don't just mean from 2001 to 2002. How these are bent was done in a different fixture. So either somebody mostly made all of the frames to a certain year, or let's say 2000 alone was made by this guy, 2001 alone was made by this guy, 2002 was made by this guy. They were definitely welded by different guys, which, I mean, how are you going to keep up all by yourself welding all the frames? I get it. But that raw serial number led me to believe, is it 999 USA frames from 2000 to 2002? Or did they start over each year? So did they have 800,001 to 999 in 2000, and then start back over to 800,001 for 2001? These are the kind of questions and things I don't know, and I haven't quite answered yet, but I am going to find out. And I'm also going to find out who welded them, where they were made. I'd kind of like to see the fixture that bent. I'd kind of like to own the fixture that bent these, just to have it in the collection. I need to find some more parts. I got 3 frames so far of the 12 I need, and so I need black handlebars from anybody. I need tank headsets. This isn't a tank headset, by the way, so if you're zooming in to see what's a tank headset look like, this is your stock brushed stainless Haro Bikes lower mega cut. So tank headsets, black handlebars, USA frames. I'm just going to spend, let's say, a budget of $50,000 this year, this coming year, because this year's ending, and let's see, what time is it? December. So next month, starting next month, my goal is to buy a USA frame or 2 a month, probably. I'm not going to buy $50,000 worth of frames. I'm just saying I need 12 of them. Not so much so I have a collection, because like this is my finger bike version of this bike, right? Of a 2000 stock, like you could have got out of a store. Obviously there's some different things on here than you could have got, but in my mind, when I was a kid, this is how I would have set my bike up. So I'm going to have the red and white 2000s of every single variation that he rode, a 2001, every single variation he rode, 2002, every single variation he rode, USA. And in fact, now that I just said that, it's more like 16 bikes. So I need, what is that? I need 13 frames, 13 more frames. But what I want to do is I need to hear from people, message me, reach out. I need more serial numbers, and I need to know what dropout you got, so that I can determine which year it is. And there's probably some people out there that know this already. But the problem is, and I'm not saying there isn't people out there who don't know a lot of this stuff. What I'm saying is, from what there is on the groups, from what there is in my head, from what there is in that collector's head, and this collector's head, and that collector's head, and the BMX museum, it's scattered everywhere. There's a piece to a 100-piece puzzle all over the world. And they're not stuck together on the same table. So I'm not trying to do something nobody's ever done before, and that's all known knowledge. I'm just taking from what I gather and what I learn and putting it all together. And so far, what I've gathered as far as these bikes is there's a astronomical amount missing. And I don't know if it's because nobody really cared back then and they didn't really document it. I'm not 100% sure. But I know if you go talk to an 85 through 87 GT guy, any of them, they can look up and find anything that you want. And off the top of their head, they know almost all of it. Every single one of them. It's common knowledge. Like, I'm not a GT guy, but I mean, I do like some 90s GT stuff, but early 2000s. But, you know, if I wanted to build one, I could find this certain cable. It's got this year code, and this is what you look for. The fork standards, or this is how you can tell the difference between those. Is this certain guy welded these ones and at this year, and it's a little bit more angled on the baloney cut back here than it. There is a plethora of that stuff. And so why can't we just take everybody's minds and put them in one spot? Yes, again, I know, BMX museum, it's got everything you need to know. It doesn't. I'm sorry, but don't shoot the messenger. It's not all out there. I want to know it all. I want to know. I don't want people to end up in the situation that I did with this one, where when you go to build this for your first time out, you just all of a sudden decide you want to have a Mirra bike, and everybody's like really secretive and combative with everything that they got and hoarding their parts and double pricing things and not sharing a word with you because they want to be the ones to know. What happens if you're just gone one day, right? And then you just took that with you. So everything that I learned, yes, I know there's actually still some more stuff that I have to be okay, make sure people are okay with talking about stuff. I know of some things that even the biggest Mirra collectors out there don't know, because these guys don't talk to anybody. And I happen across it, and a lot of it is because it's the way that I am. It's just, I'm honest, I'm upfront, I'm upbeat, I'm just on a mission. And they're like, literally like, cool, I kind of want to help this out. You seem like a legit dude. The rest of the guys just all seem like, you know, bag draggers and people I don't really want to talk to and people I don't want to see in my collections and stuff. And so if they want to share their stuff one of these days, I'll fly over there and I'm going to film it. And that's what I'm going to do this year. I'm going to fly around. I'm going to go to bike shows. I'm going to talk to people, show some collections. There's going to be some stuff that I can't put out there that I'm just going to be able to use the knowledge of, though. And it's just, I don't want somebody else to get in this and not be able to figure out what handle grip went to their bike and what year, what kind of style. I don't even know if you guys know this. Some of these are completely flat and some of these are a little more rounded edges and a little more of like a 22.5 angle on the bar ends. And there's just so many things. Like, this is a hardcore gyro cable. Nobody would even tell me that because they either didn't know for themselves or and sources. Like, I got this upper gyro cable. I have it in another video. I had to buy several different ones to figure out the right size that's fat in here just right so it didn't come clear over here and then back in. So I had to buy a bunch of them and try them out. This is for the Dave Mirra 2 handlebar, who's from his pro bar from 2000 up, a hardcore SST gyro, upper gyro cable, Orgy, O-R-Y-G. You can get NOS ones on eBay. Obviously, you got to find somebody who has OG seats. I got lucky on that one and a few others. And these multi-surface tires are actually astronomically harder to find than a USA frame. I've got an idea where 20 of them are in just the last month of trying to get one. These pegs, you know, you can find them on eBay or the museum. This is a standard length V cable, Orgy, gyro. I think the Odyssey was the gyro. Well, they copied this one, and then yeah, that's a whole nother story. This is a standard. This has the 996 brakes on it. What else is there? I'll just give you a couple things here. It didn't come with a black fork. It's supposed to be chrome, but like I said, I'm building it the way that I want. These Heifer Pros, these didn't come out until 2001. I mean, I'll rag on this thing all day if you want me to. I mean, it's all brand new, basically NOS pedals. These are the big block. Are they sealed? They're not unsealed bearing, but they're the big block with the push-in pins. Those are for 2000. 175 crank arms, K1 chain. It's like the old style beefier looking chain. It didn't come factory on the bike, but that's what people would switch to if they didn't switch to like a, what is that, like a moped chain or XR80 chain or something back in the day. Those big fat wide ones that would always eat up the chain stays. Things like that. Brush NOS Mega Cup lower headset. It's got the loose ball bearings in the top. That's a sealed bearing. The Shield flange grips. Dave ran flanged a couple times, but for the most part he didn't. But I always liked and wanted the flange grips. I refurbished these. These weren't horrible, but these came actually off of my blue bike. And what I did was I just taped off the circle in there, so it still said it's Haro Bikes. I calmly, easily sanded down until these were perfectly smooth, all the way up to 3000 grit on the, not these ones, and then painted these. The polished ones I sanded 3000 grit, then polished them. But I was able to save those ones, able to save these ones. Tech 99 brake levers, they had those back then. Dave rode Tech 77s, you'd take the pin out sometimes. Sometimes you'd run a front brake, sometimes you wouldn't. That's why you see the 990 mounts on his bikes. He'd go back and forth. This is a Mega Fork. This is a non-CNC'd steerer tube because I didn't want to paint a chrome fork when I had a good chrome fork for like my USA builds coming up. This is the railed seat, OG Mirra Pro series that looks a lot like the Tribute series. Even in fact, it's almost the same shape. It's just you can tell right off the bat for this is a little straighter here, where it's sewed from the white to black, where this one comes up and then dives off. And then the Haro logo spun around the other way, and obviously it says Tribute series. This index here is a little different too. 2.1 by 20 inch multi-surface threes, white walls. These are the Mega Hubbed sealed bearing Haro hubs with the people call these triple walls. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. So these came in on 2001, the Heifer Pros. They're actually a double wall. They even say double wall, I'm pretty sure. A lot of people like these because they think they're a triple wall, and they're not. So the side wall is basically the same height. It's the chambers inside that make them a little different. 48 spoke. What else we got? These are NOS big block pedals. We already went over those. Pretty decent crank arms, 175, went over that. 44 tooth Mega Nuke. NOS Haro Bikes Fusion style pegs, the ribbed ones. Some of them say Fusion right here in black and blue. These are the ones that say Haro Bikes. I believe these came off of a newer bike, but this is my nicest stuff. So it's on the nicest bike, and like I can't do this thing any justice. Like, you're gonna have to just come see it in person. It is immaculate. These are like almost NOS tires, and they look like crap on this bike. That's how bad it is. This stuff's all NOS on eBay. You can get the brakes on Pork Chop still. You can get the levers on Pork Chop still. They still make that stuff, so that's kind of cool. This was my best logoed. These logos are screen printed on over black. This is my best logo that I had, and so what I ended up doing was sanding it down around it because I had it taped off, and repainting this, and then peeling the tape off, and then clearing over it. So that's actually a refinished seat post just to preserve that, and it was obviously not near as nice as the rest of the bike. So what else is there? These valve stem caps are just like some hex nutted valve stem caps that I'm pretty sure when I was like 13 or something I probably stole off of somebody's car, and I've just had them I don't know why I had them for so many years. I've had them for so many years, and I'm pretty sure I didn't get them legally when I was a kid. Arrest me. I don't care. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell. But that's my mission, and that's what I need help with. Is I need some more pictures of, like, especially down here on the chainstay. Like, some of them have like an indentation. Like, let's say this is a chainstay. You can actually see a visible line here and here on some of them, and some of them are more smooth like this. The welds on some of, I haven't seen the best welds yet on pretty much any of these Haro frames, USA or not, compared to other bikes out there, and just knowing how to weld. But like, I can tell differences in people's welds. Like, it's almost like handwriting to me, and to other fabricators and welders as well. But I would like to see like the welds and how well it was finished, and the different dropout shapes, and then obviously your serial numbers, so I can figure out the serial numbers. What I'm guessing, I'm stuck on, like I was saying, with the serial numbers. It's either 999 total or 999 each year. So I guess it's more than two things. And then they started over each year. Or, like, let's say my first theory got thrown out with the 2000s and thinking 01 would be 8001. But, like, the point that my theory got torn out of the picture was my red USA, where it's H00 and then my number, which is close to 500. So how could that be, right? So either they didn't make that many 01 and 02 USA frames, or they had X amount of red and X amount of white, and they started over, because there's certainly not another digit. You would have really thought on an 02 raw by that point they would have another couple of digits added to it, or change, you know, the 00 to like 00 or 01, 02 to compensate for that. So my second theory, like I was saying, was, is there 999 total? But then my Y2K throws that off, because it's already almost to 500. So is there only 500 something of 01 and 02 raw, up to raw, the blues and the raws? I don't know. That's where I'm at. That's my dilemma. That's where I need help with. That's my goal, is to build up my flare frames exactly with parts that I need to do my spec builds, and then find USA frames to swap them out with. And then also, which is kind of confusing to people too, is I'm building all of the colors from 99 to 2002 as you could have walked into the bike shop. So like my Blue Survivor, like basically like that. Like, that bike is a pro frame, but it's a Taiwan pro frame. But that's how that bike came. So I want the whole lineup of Taiwan Pro completes the way that they came, and all the colors, and then all of my spec builds eventually will be on USA frames, the correct year and the correct colors and things like that. So I will be using all the flare frames that I have, not a lot of them, and some of the Taiwan Pro frames that I have, to build my Mirra spec builds to where it looks like this, until I get the frame and I get the color perfect. And then I'll swap the USA frame in with all my Mirra spec parts. And the goal is to have every catalog bike, Mirra Freestyle Pro, and every Pro spec bike. And so going back to the museum, and that list of all Dave's bikes from, I think it was 90, I'm pretty sure, no, it was 95 or 96 to 2006. There's bikes missing. Not necessarily bikes missing, variations missing. I found, so my list started out at 14 of those, and now I'm at like 20. So I've seen some other videos that didn't have Dave in the or like the advertisement for it, or like when you YouTubed it, it didn't say anything about Dave. He just happened to be in a video. And I seen some bikes that I was like, huh. And then I watched the Super Tour, and he was actually on a front brake bike that looked a lot like this one. It was the 2001 with the, where it says Haro Bikes in the white and light blue. And it was black handlebars, flange grips, front brake, and black forks, and black wheels. I don't see that on any of the things. Dave Mirra's bike for doing the video games was black wheels, black bars. Sometimes he ran this stem upside down, and sometimes he ran a USA stem upside down with the blocker plate on there, and still ran this metal thing. And so other times he flipped it back over and had the built-in upper gyro plate on the USA stem. But he went back and forth through all those years with that. And so I think on that video game bike he had a pair of black bars, this stem upside down, or I couldn't zoom in enough, the USA stem flipped upside down without the upper gyro threaded holes with the blocker plate on it, running this metal gyro setup with a chrome fork. I didn't see that in there. With black, I'm assuming they were rail wheels. I don't know that yet either. I haven't seen any other pictures. I just stopped, zoomed in, took a picture. I couldn't find any logos on the wheels or anything, but they were a black wheel. There's just so many variations to this. And like I said, he changed his bikes like he changed his underwear. But my ultimate goal, it started out with just building my bike that I wanted as a kid, just to have as a shelf hanger. I was going to put on a wall or on the bar or in a man cave in the shop or something. And then I ended up with extra parts and extra bikes and a ton more extra knowledge than I really was looking for. I just wanted this to be done. And then now it's kind of personal. It's more or less for helping people out. Like, that's what I want to do. Like, I'm going to build all the bikes that I want to build in the meantime and meet some cool people and things like that. I already have met some really awesome people. There's a lot of really cool people out there. A lot of people helping me out and things like that. There's more good than bad. You're always going to have your haters. But I just want somebody who doesn't know, when like they know the bike and they just want to go look something up, like what that seat post is, what exact barring goes here, where to get that cable, where to get this one. They're not sold in the same kit. Which handle grip. I'm just going to repeat myself over and over again. Kind of the length of this cable, whether you run it on the inside or the outside. I guess that's more preference. I've seen it both ways. I just want somebody to be able to do what you can do with any other bike in the world. Google Dave Mirra's white bike, and there's like all of a sudden a list of everything that you need to do it and where to get it until it sells out, I guess. That's the goal. And to document more USA frames. I want to find them all that didn't get scrapped or thrown away, and whether that be an in search of post, and maybe people have them and they don't even realize they even have what they have. Mine didn't have, the first one I got didn't have, it has Heifer Pro wheels, which is off an 01. It has black knee saver bars, and nothing else on the bike is Haro at all. So there's that. It did have a few Haro parts that came with it. But there's going to be a lot of those out there where people just have the frame and the stickers are probably gone, and it probably has like Primo and Poverty or whatever, and S&M and you name it, and they don't even realize it's an Haro bike. So that's the goal. Dig up as many of these, not this one, but of the USA frames as I can find, document as many of those numbers. I know there's that guy at the museum, and he got so far, and I don't even remember how many bikes he's even got on there. It's not very many. Not very many at all. And I know there's more out there, because just in like I said, a month or two of looking, I've found like 20 of them that I don't see on anybody else's sites. I don't see them, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on these groups and things and showing their collections, and there's hundreds of people in the museum showing their collections, and I don't see any of their serial numbers on anything. And I happen to find 20 just looking for one. Anyway, God's good. Peace.